Welcome back. We're here at Autism Angels and Energies. And just to reiterate a little bit about last week, Kendi, you have a son named Kenny, and you guys could watch the first episode. And you guys went, and he was tremoring, having 100 seizures a day.
He was having anywhere between 20 and 100 a day. Yes.
Okay. And he was under care of a neurologist in Pittsburgh Children's Hospital.
At the time it was Cincinnati Children's Hospital.
Oh, okay. And they actually encouraged you guys because and this is pre-internet. So Kendi was at the library and doing all kind of researches. And plus you were paying attention to your psychic ability and your own intuition, which that's a whole nother episode. But anyways, I'm just reiterating, to bring us back, you and your husband ended up because you were desperate for these seizures. You didn't pay a month's rent. You loaded up your car and drove to Oklahoma with a paper map thinking that you were going to a clinic, and you wound up in a pasture with a farmhouse and everything. And after you and your husband exchanged words, these people helped your son in 3 days.
3 days, the seizure stopped in 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
The first day it went from, we had been charting them for, I don't know whether it was months or whatever, where we'd put, how you do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the lowest we would have would be 25 or 30 a day. And it went, like, the very first day, after we'd been there 24 hours, it went down to like 15. And then the third day it went down to like 2, and then they were gone. So it was actually quite miraculous. Mm-hmm. I still have the old notebook.
God bless. But anyways, this is a perfect time to say this.
Mm-hmm.
Neither Kendi or I are licensed to diagnose or prescribe. These are just, our mission statement actually is, we just wrote it down. Okay. The passion is the mission to bring
autism
into a new paradigm. And that really is our mission. So if you have questions, please put them in the link below. And in fact, because of our last episode, we do have many of you responded. Oh, Kendi, could you read the questions? I'm going to sit here and drink water while you take over.
Well, my writing is so bad, nobody can read it anyway. Our first question was seizures. Where do they go when they have seizures?
Good question.
Yeah, and my best guess on that, and obviously we're just here hoping we all can evolve into a new paradigm, by being open-minded and contemplating different things about autism. But my best guess would be, they become unconscious. So when we go unconscious, aren't we going into like the another dimension?
Another realm.
You would know more about that than I do. Yeah.
Oh, well, I believe that we're all just kind of, that is another realm of some sort, because we're going to now play off of the autism and telepathy. That's going to be our next video, will be the autism and telepathy. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, we could talk about that, certainly.
Yeah. But I feel that where they go is that void of some sort.
Yeah.
And it's a divine void. And again, that is just my opinion.
Yeah.
So anyways, please go ahead.
And I think there's so much that we don't know about this universe, which is what makes it magical, But where do we go when we sleep? It is believed that we go to another dimension, So that's just my belief. Now, you know, a lot of seizures, you know, if you go for 5 minutes or 6 or 10, you know, obviously your consciousness, which is your awareness, goes somewhere, right?
Right.
But if, you know, they're just a minute or two, or that might be a totally different, but again, you still have your, you know, awareness or consciousness is always there.
Right. And my son, one of my sons had fever seizures.
Yeah.
And I often wondered what's happening during this particular time too.
Yeah.
And then I realized how psychic, the connection between mother and autistic child is, well, they've done studies on that, which we're going to get into that. But they've done studies on that.
At Harvard University.
At Harvard University. I know, I was just reading about that. However, with what this connection between, I feel maybe the mother's emotional state could somehow be picked up telepathically.
Well, I believe that, I don't just believe it. I mean, trauma therapists will tell you, and people who study, you know, the neurological components of autism, you know, people with autism need somebody to help regulate their nervous system.
Right.
And that's usually the mother. So you share a nervous system, you know, which would be an energetic system,
right.
Correct?
It's an energetic system,
right.
just like
So,
the umbilical cord that's just still not, it's
Yes.
still there. It's still there.
Yeah. So if the mother's dysregulated, the child or individual, I should say, is going to participate in that dysregulation because you are one entity of neurological regulation.
Okay.
I may not be saying the words completely right because I'm not.
We all understand what
Okay,
you're saying. Really, and I feel that that's finely put because many of the parents of an autistic child, they are losing hope, going through a deeper and a higher level of emotion. And these children who are now, yours is an adult, Kenny is 39 years old, but they have a finer and a higher sense of awareness. And
100%.
they're even miles apart. Kenny knows what's going on, and you know what's going on with Kenny, isn't it? Because you've said it a few times. So, and now they've done studies at Harvard University, and I just found that was just fascinating.
Absolutely fascinating.
And you know what? Let's just touch base on that, and then we'll go ahead and start with a part 2. Do you want to finish this up as the spiritual? Wasn't there a spiritual question?
There was a spiritual question. Wondering, we had a question from someone wondering the spiritual side of autism.
Okay, Kendi, what's your thoughts? Because
that's a really big book to open, but I do definitely believe there's a spiritual connection, and where to go with that? I believe, or I've seen evidence that has led me to believe that a lot of times a autistic individual comes into a family to help resolve generational trauma, to help and it could be all members of the family. I just know with my personal experience that there's a connection between my son and I, and my lessons in this lifetime, or things that I'm supposed to overcome in this lifetime to be the best Christ-like person that I can. Does that make sense?
That's beautifully said.
Oh, great.
So basically, it's ancestral, and it's in the DNA somewhere, and it could include past lives that
Absolutely.
you and Kenny have.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? We'd like to know your thoughts on this. Somebody had brought in the question about spirituality. We do believe there's a spiritual connection for these children brought into our families. Is there another question on we could answer before we go to?
There was someone had asked about, did we believe that the negative dark energies feed on the intense energies of the family?
That goes with the spiritual question for sure.
Right.
First of all, let me just say the dark negative energies, whatever name or title you want to put to them, they feed off of unwanted negative emotion, period. Okay? So when you have a family that is dealing with the chaos of autism, I have to say that there's a lot of unwanted negative emotion for these darker energies to feed off of. But you've seen it. You've seen the evidence of it. You lived it too.
100%. Yes. I would say that's just true universally in our dimension. You know, doesn't mean either one's good or bad. It's just we live in a universe of polarities.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
right.
Negative and positive, and and they the negative does feed off the positive energy. So. Would make perfect sense.
Yeah, and unwanted negative energy is sadness, fear, hopelessness. Hopelessness. Oh, that's one of our questions, and we'll end this video here, and we'll work on part 2, which is going to be the telepathy. We need it.
Yeah.
But there was a mom in here that has an autistic 5-year-old, and have been trying to potty train since 3 years old.
Yeah.
And she's just really just over it, and she's losing hope, and it's really depleting her joy in her life because she's dealing with this. Well,
and I think so many times in the journey of raising a child with autism, there are many times that you go into losing hope and hopelessness. You will travel that path, I believe, many times, as I think people do in their life in general. But I believe there's a more difficult journey that comes with an autistic child.
Right. Oh,
you know,
that's why we're doing this video.
Yeah,
especially about the hope.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with inner transformation in yourself, and I believe that's why the journey presented itself to begin with. And I'm certainly not blaming anyone for this came into your family because of that.
What? I'm gonna interject here because we just talked about this before.
Sure.
And I gotta say it before I lose my train of thought. There was a point, I mean, other than the seizures, which obviously had to come to an end, but you got to the point, instead of trying to fix autistic Kenny, you were just gonna try to fix yourself and how to live another way of living. I forget how you worded it, but please go ahead.
I feel very passionate about the fact that when you have a child or an individual with autism, I think a big part of that journey is, and I'm not saying right away you don't try fixing them or changing them or try, there's certainly speech therapy and occupational therapy and behavioral therapy and all types of different things available, and I think they're all great modalities, for helping individuals with autism.
But you use flower essences.
Flower essences.
Oh, that's going to be another
amazing.
One whole episode.
Yes. I mean,
amazing. I've seen Kenny go from not being able to go through a drive-through to order food or anything. And with flower essences, he's able to go through the drive-through and look and...
Yeah, you can shift so much with flower essences. And there is, and as Mary knows, she's actually the one that taught me about flower essences.
And then she took the ball and really just went forward, especially when it comes to autism and essences. Oh, that could be an episode because...
Yeah, great idea. Yeah.
Well, hey, look, you want to go ahead and we could do another episode on the spirituality. Is there another spiritual question here?
don't think so. We did the generational trauma, didn't we talk
Yeah.
about generational
Yeah,
possibility? And
yeah.
you know, I just have to say this because the word trauma came up.
Yeah.
I personally have went through a lot of trauma, and as most people on this planet have. But my son recently went through some very significant violent trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But
We'll be right out.
interestingly enough, if you've ever been through severe trauma and you're just coming out the other side of it, you will see the significant similarities between someone who's been traumatized and someone who has autism. You know, you talk about an autistic spectrum and where you are on that spectrum and those different things, you know, to be seen. You will see a lot of the same things in a severely traumatized person. And I just think that's worth mentioning, and I'm not sure.
You
how
know
I got
what?
off on that
I
little
think it's
tangent.
more than worth mentioning. I feel
Yeah.
that honestly that could be another episode.
Right.
So again, we would like to hear from you guys. The trauma have you experienced? Has it you kind of left you with a lot of
Autistic tendencies.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Um,
And what is the possibility, you know, that some, of course, there's a lot of things that can cause autism, and there's so much we don't know about it.
Yes.
But I do know what I've experienced and what I've seen 100% to know it's true. I experienced it over and over and over again. How much of autism is a neurological dysfunction or dysregulation is probably a better word. You know, the nervous system is kind of stuck in the sympathetic. You know, there's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. And
I just got to tell you what I flashed on is that the heavy metals, because we're talking about an energy system.
Right, absolutely.
And now you have heavy metals in this energy. What happens when you have a magnet with metals?
Right. Yeah.
Really?
Really.
Right.
I know.
So I know
Interesting.
that you went through that journey as well. And so did, you know, we have that autism in my family too, my granddaughter.
Yes.
And the whole taking the heavy metals out of her system.
Yes. Well, I think it, and I keep jumping in, sorry.
No, this is what this is about.
I think what there are so many people with podcasts and that cover the side of autism, you know, about diet and behavioral therapies and of course different programs and I think what I find most fascinating and I have a passion about, because I've experienced all those other things as well. You know, I've went down all those different modalities, so to speak. But in most recent years, I want to say the last 5, I have had an opportunity to explore energetically, spiritually, and autism as it relates to the nervous system and nervous system dysregulation and trauma and generational and ancestral trauma. And all of those things are actually what I want to say saved my son's life. You know, but they made a huge impact on his autistic tendencies or his autistic characteristics.
You know, how about when we do the upload after this?
Yeah.
You know, we're just rolling with this. Do you want to do it with autism and trauma? And then
That'll
you
be
can.
interesting.
Well, you're going to be the one that's interesting because Kenny is the one that, he's 39, so 37 years old, went through a very...
34. He was,
Oh, he was
34 when
34.
it happened. Yeah.
Okay. So do you want to end this here and then we'll be back and we'll do trauma and autism?
That sounds amazing.
And please, if you guys have any questions with any of this, spiritual, ancestral, any of this, please put your questions in the link below. And also, remember the gentleman who put in about the vaccines, and it could have been a bad batch of vaccines. Very well could have been. It could have been anything really. And we do know that vaccines have saved lives. That's not even a question.
Well, and I think we had talked about possibly at the beginning of each episode addressing the comments and questions.
Yes.
And because I do have some things I'd like to say about that.
Yeah, please do.
Well, do you want to do it now, or did you want to open our next one?
Does it have to do with the vaccine
Yes.
end of it?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Let's just do it in this one,
Oh,
because this
okay.
is where it was addressed.
Oh, okay. So we got a question about, like Mary said, could it have been a bad batch of vaccines? And that obviously is a possibility, but this happens with vaccines. I mean, it's not like this is a one-time thing, like Ken's the only one this has ever happened to.
Mm-hmm.
There are many parents, mothers, who have seen a change in their child within hours to days of having a vaccine, and seizures are one of the things there's a vaccine injury table, and it is one of the things that the government covers as being a possibility of a side effect from the vaccine. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad batch to cause that. And I think I'm not saying that all of autism comes from vaccines. I'm not saying that at all.
All right. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, if you think of the nervous system and all the different things, that can affect it, I mean, autism is just a group of symptoms. There is no blood test to determine if you have autism. So this group of symptoms, could be caused by, heavy metals, like you said, toxins, Roundup, that type of thing. And I personally don't feel a real calling to advocate for the connection between vaccines and autism, but I think that
was your personal story.
That was my personal story, and I think that's a shift that, as a consciousness, universal consciousness, that is going to have to be made,
right,
to accept that possibility. Right?
Can I interject here?
Absolutely.
This isn't even your opinion at this point. I mean, really, didn't you go to court and actually, because of this table, it was proven and Kenny was awarded?
Correct.
Okay, so it had to be more than just your belief.
So many people don't know about this. There is with the Department of Health and Human Services, there is the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, and it is a program that was established by the federal government many years ago. My son's injury occurred in 1986, I believe, and it was already established, the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. So there is a program where they know that vaccines, not just bad batches of vaccines, but just the vaccine in its most perfect condition, has the potential to cause these different side effects, some, and death. I mean, death is one of the covered things in the table. So there is a National Vaccine Injury Table, and they use that table to determine if the individual has certain things happen to them or experiences certain things within a certain time frame to be able to be applied for this federal compensation. So I don't know if that answers the question. Could it be a bad batch? It most certainly could, but this happens, I don't want to say frequently, that but it does happen. It is an existing thing. Some people really have trouble wrapping their brain around that, but there's a lot of denial in our society and us as individuals. I mean, for how long after it was discovered that the world was round did people argue that it was flat? I mean, it takes us a while as a universal consciousness to accept certain things, and some are more difficult because this would be one we'd have to accept, that we participated in the possibility of harm in individuals. And so I think it's one that's tough for us as a society to overcome that possibility,
Mhm.
or to even allow new research to be done.
Oh, there's been plenty of research. That's why I'm excited to do the autism and telepathy. But how about our next
Yes.
session
Yeah.
will be about Kenny and trauma. So it will be autism and trauma.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah.
So we'll see you soon.
Okay.
And if you have any questions, please put them in the link below. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thanks.